Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Maple Leafs Lounge. I'm your host, Kevin Armstrong, joined by my friends. Look at us. We're all back. The team's all here. We've got the old prof. We've got Alex Hobson. We've got Peter Baracchini. And we are writers with the Hockey Writers, covering everyone's favorite team to love and sometimes hate, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And although it's, there hasn't been much hockey to talk about for months, we always have lots to talk about on the show and lots of articles to write. And that's what we bring to you every week in this show. We talk about some of the articles that we've put out there, and we talk about some ideas we have for articles coming up. And we bounce it off each other. We let the viewers give us their feedback on those ideas, and we always like to see the feedback. So make sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow us on social media. thehockeywriters.com is where you can find all of our articles. So introductions aside, it started out with kind of a quiet time here. We haven't had lots of Maple Leaf news releases, and suddenly Friday night there's a Auston Matthews successful wrist surgery. What was that? And the news release is very short. Basically says he started to ramp up his conditioning on ice, and suddenly he needs wrist surgery, and he's out for 6 weeks, which puts it right up to the start of training camp. So that's good. But there's some holes in that news release he can drive a truck through. I'm wondering how come this took so long to diagnose. We knew last season he had some wrist problems. So that one seemed kind of strange to me. I'm glad he's on the mend, but I still wonder about the timing and if we're actually getting the full story on this. So, Alex, why don't you start up with your reaction when you saw that release?
Well, my reaction, to be completely honest, is that I saw it coming from a mile away. I know that after Matthews suffered his original wrist injury back in, I think it was February of last year, I remember he came back, and I think the team was saying that he was at a point where, his wrist wasn't fully healthy, but if he played, he wouldn't be damaging it further. So he could still kind of make an impact in other ways. And I remember just watching Matthews without a shot, and it's not right. It did not sit right with me. So, I think he got to a point where it was better than it was as he kind of got later on in the year. But I'm just glad that he's getting it out of the way now, because Matthews' most lethal asset is his shot. And if he doesn't have his shot, then he doesn't have half of his game. And in terms of why they waited to do the surgery now, I don't quote me on this, but I thought I heard something saying that they originally thought that he wouldn't need it, but then he started to do his conditioning in the off season, and then it flared up again. And he said, okay, better to get this out of the way now than kind of let it simmer and burn and get worse and worse. So bottom line, I'm just happy that he's getting the surgery, because there were times last year when you could tell that his wrist wasn't right. And if he can get it back to full form for the upcoming season, I think that would be best for him and the fans and the team alike.
You're right with now you say all those things, and isn't it crazy when you think of that now, that he won the Rocket with half a wrist? So now with this thing, hopefully they've got some enhancements, and who knows how many goals it'll be this time around. But and thank you for the clarification on the timing, because that really seemed like, what do you mean you haven't been on the ice since May and working this thing out? It didn't make much sense to me, but hopefully back and ready to go. So we can move on from that subject and wish Auston the best and a speedy recovery, and get back out there for us, please, young man. Only 23 years old and his first wrist surgery. So, okay, guys, Joe Thornton is not coming back. We knew that was very unlikely. We talked about it in our first show after they were eliminated from the playoffs, that Joe Thornton would unlikely be back. And to be honest, I think a lot of us thought we might not see him back on ice. But he has re-signed he has signed with Florida Panthers for a 1-year contract. He said glowing things about the Florida Panthers. That is in the Leaf division. So this is another little bit of a shot in the heart for you. But it made me think, this has been a tough offseason. Sure, there's new people, but a lot of people that we kind of were getting behind have left. And for one reason or another. And the list goes on. You've got Zach Hyman, you've got Frederik Andersen, Nick Foligno doesn't come back. Alex Galchenyuk is not signed. And Joe Thornton not coming back. These are all guys that we really saw character build around this team. I'm wondering who is the biggest disappointment to you, and maybe that you think the fan base in not having a player back. How about you start us off with that, old prof?
Well, part of me isn't disappointed at all, actually, because I know that that's just the profession. And when Hyman left, I really sort of took a spell check, because I thought, I've been wrong a lot about what keeps people around. But I think Hyman, for me, is probably the most disappointing not to have on the team. I'm not disappointed that he landed well in Edmonton. I wish him luck. I think he's a bright young professional, and he's a character guy. So good luck to him wherever. But for me, Hyman is the player that I think in the short run will miss the most, unless, of course, someone like Nick Ritchie comes up and does well, or one of the other left wingers comes up and does well, then we'll quickly forget about Hyman.
Peter, I know that we talked a lot on this show about the different additions last season, how we like the character building around those guys. Who's your biggest disappointment when you look at the non-re-signed?
I'm going to go a little bit off the board and go with a current player right now in Morgan Rielly, mainly because of the whole contract scenario with, hoping that the Maple Leafs can try and get something done before the market and get a deal set up where it's still roughly 5-6, maybe 6.5 million in a decent range. Cap is going up slightly, but then you see all the other signings, Dougie Hamilton, Cale Makar, Seth Jones, and we talked about it last week too, whether or not Morgan Rielly is going to go or not. I think it was a mistake to not re-sign him ahead of time, and now it looks like he's possibly going to be on the way out, because if he's going to command maybe 7.5 mil, it's going to be really tough. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope they could get a deal done and keep him in the folds. But if not, then they're probably going to go and shop him.
And we'll send it over to you now, Alex, for your biggest disappointment this offseason for players re-signing.
Yeah, so I think from a purely physical and like on ice standpoint, I think I'd agree with the prof and say that Zach Hyman is going to be the biggest disappointment to see leave, especially in the short term, because we saw the player that he truly grew into last year, and the Leafs are going to miss him playing on the top line with Matthews and Marner. But I'd say personally, from a personal standpoint and just an all around kind of outlook at it, I'm going to miss Frederik Andersen the most, and only because I really don't like how his time in Toronto ended. I think it was a pretty terrible way for him to go out, in the sense that he just didn't have it from early on, and then he had all that those injury issues. And as much as we were enjoying Jack Campbell and kind of his breakout season and how well he was doing for the Leafs, Frederik Andersen was, for me at least, I mean, I'm only 21 years old, and I just barely missed the glory days of Cujo and Felix Potvin and stuff. So realistically, Frederik Andersen was the first true starting goalie that I was able to watch and feel comfortable with between the pipes. And it's just really unfortunate for me how his time in Toronto sort of ended, in the sense that all the injury issues and the fact that he kind of lost his job because of the injury. And I don't think the Leafs are going to hurt from it on the ice this year, because Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek is a really good tandem. And you could argue that it would be better than the one they had last year. But at the same time, I was really sorry to see Freddie go. I know he was close with a lot of the core players. He made a pretty heartfelt Instagram post about it the other day. So in that sense, I'd say it's most disappointing to see Freddie move on like that, because I thought he was going to be the guy in Toronto for years and years. So
yeah, there's been some disappointing when some of our fan favorites go. I'm actually so surprised, Alex, that you didn't say your buddy Alex Galchenyuk. That guy to me. All right.
Well, the thing with Galchenyuk, I was just going to say the thing with Galchenyuk is that he hasn't signed anywhere yet, and apparently the door is not closed on him. So I'm going to save my eulogy for once he signs with a different team.
That one to me, it's like that should have just been a sign, because, and this is the thing, we get behind and we tell stories about these guys and we kind of think a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, they've got to get paid too, right? So But that guy, we talked about it so many times, like his career and his hockey life was reborn because of what Toronto put into him. And I'm just disappointed that he didn't kind of show the appreciation and sign. And especially when there started to be rumors around social media this week that he was going to be going to Montreal of all places, that cast him out. And for me, guys, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise, it's Nick Foligno. You guys know my history with the Folignos, and they, he said all the right things. He comes to after the trade, he's wearing the hat for 93 and all these different things, and he's this and that. This is a dream come true, and blah blah blah. Does nothing when he gets there, and then kicks me in the teeth by signing with the Boston Bruins. Are you kidding me? I could have accepted if you went back to Columbus. That's your team. I get it. I could have accepted that. I could have even accepted the Minnesota Wild to go and play with your brother. Sure, that'd be very cool to do. You went to Boston. Give me a break. I don't trust anything that you just said. And I'm over that. I don't know what I'm going to do with my Foligno jersey. I'm not going to burn it or do anything stupid like that. But I it's not hanging on the wall behind me as proudly as it used to be. So that one kind of stung for me. Very cool moment in the world of sports this week, and you don't have to be a baseball fan to see the pictures and go, that's pretty wild stuff that they did. Field of Dreams. They went back to the 1994 movie with Kevin Costner when he basically, if you build it, they will come. He put a big baseball field in the middle of his cornfield in Iowa. And you just watch the movie. I'm not going to say the whole thing, but baseball goes out and does that. Really cool scene to see that. We do also know that Iowa is the home of the best band in the world, Slipknot, and also the best heavy metal band of all, or album of all time, right, Peter? Iowa.
Absolutely.
With Slipknot.
Absolutely.
Yes. So the old prof knows what we're talking about there, I'm sure. But it made me think, if you could, and we saw this with Lake Tahoe last year, but if you could put a hockey game anywhere, and the league's been trying this with Stadium Series, but they went outside of the box. They put a baseball game, a pro game in the middle of a cornfield. So this is all bets are off. If you could have your field of dreams for hockey, so the hockey rink field of dreams, where would you put it? Peter, you go first.
First off, shout out to Corey Taylor if he's listening to the show about it. But if you're
listening,
Corey, we appreciate it. I mean, yeah, you just mentioned the Lake Tahoe game. I thought that was a really well done, scenario. The scenery and the backdrop was absolutely great. The weather wasn't, on par, but they managed to change it, play a little bit later. It seemed like the perfect scenario. Obviously that's in America, but if we were able to do a game here in Canada, I think the equivalent would try and do something with the backdrop in the Rockies. Pretty simple, self-explanatory. I couldn't think of anything else, but that to me is the one thing that would stand out if you were to do a kind of field of dream scenario here in Canada, or even maybe up north in the Northwest Territories, colder climate. Just spitballing ideas, but to me, those would be my top two destinations.
How about you, old prof? Where would you love to see a hockey game take place?
I don't know the answer to that question, but what I'd really love to see is an original six tournament, maybe in the preseason or sometime, just to get warmed up. But I was thinking today about how much we've changed in hockey. There used to be only 6 teams, 6 coaches, 6 whatever. I'd love to go back to those days and have a bit of a, just a tournament with the original 6 teams, just for shits and giggles to see what would happen. It just would seem fun to me.
And to add to that, you could also put in like the old Philly and the Boston, how those rinks weren't even the rink sizes. They were different sizes, and the glass was lower, and all that insanity would add to that. All right. How about the imagination? I'm almost scared to say with Alex where you would have a team going and playing, Alex.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on Peter's idea a little bit here. I think it would be amazing to get a game done in the middle of Lake Louise, right in between all the mountains and Banff. I've been to Lake Louise a couple of times. Banff is one of my favorite places on earth to travel, and to have a hockey game there with all the backdrop and the mountains and everything, it would be it'd be incredible. And I have no doubt that fans would enjoy watching that as well. But if not Banff. And this is a massive far stretch as well. But I also think it would be really cool if they could somehow organize a game on the Rideau Canal in Ottawa.
Ooh, yeah, very nice.
Set up some bleachers along the either side of the canal, and then just if it's wide enough, I think it'd be pretty cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah, like that.
I do remember. I changed my mind. I like Alex's idea.
And I do remember back when the Lake Tahoe thing came up that there had been some discussion about the Rockies and what we're saying, but there was a whole bunch of issues because it's the national parks and of the amount of equipment that was going to have to come in and all those different things that the NHL just kind of said this is going to be a lot of headaches that we don't know if we're going to get this done. But I agree. The one that I would throw onto that I think would be pretty cool, and especially coming out of COVID, hopefully, and the world that we've been in, would be right on the border of a lot of different places. We share, that's the longest border in the world between two countries, and it's most longest unprotected border between two countries in this whole world. We should celebrate that. And I would love to see, say, a Canucks game and a Kraken game right on the Washington, BC border. And you see videos of people that walk back and forth between the borders and everything else. And I think you could mix in a few other teams with that right along the border line to have a little bit of a celebration of the relationship we have with our southern country. So there you go. That's our picks for a ice rink of dreams. We hope you enjoyed that little chat. And if you did, make sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Head on over to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and follow us at The Hockey Writers. And make sure to stop by thehockeywriters.com to check out our material as well. So last week, we talked about Morgan Rielly. And as I said off the top of the show, we bounce ideas around. I liked the conversation, so I wrote an article about it. And, there were some people that agreed, people that disagreed, whatever, but it really was a bee's nest because this is a catch-22 for this team, no matter how you look at it. They're supposed to be a contender, and they're going to have to get rid of a critical piece to what could be their success is kind of where things land. But what came out of this is a reader put in a prospect, and this is where I'm going, that we as the Maple Leafs writers have got a little bit of an edge up now because our own Peter Baracchini is now leading up the prospects, the drafts, the everything for the hockey writers. This means that we've got our first link to the brain of what the draft and the prospect should be all about. So first off, congratulations on that, Peter.
Thank you.
And before we get into the prospect that this reader talked about, tell the listeners and the viewers right now about your maybe a little bit of your background for seeing prospects and why you love watching the prospect game and going that way so much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes back to any hockey fan or whatever. During Christmas, you would always sit around and watch the World Juniors, and to me, that was like my first. Obviously I was watching the NHL, but I was also my first exposure to junior hockey and the players coming up through the systems and everything like that. So I was always watching that tournament every single year, always loved to get to know the prospects, who's going to be up, who teams have and everything like that. And it just, my intrigue and interest just kept going further and further. I've gone to I've been in arenas where there were GTHL games and I would see the play of players coming up, Tyler Sagan, Malcolm Subban, Mitch Marner. So I was already situated in the GTHL, so I already got to see some of the bigger names come up. And to me, that was just always intriguing to me. Well, I'm older right now, and already these guys are in the NHL, so a little bit of a balance or miscommunication in direction of my career where I could have gone if I was stuck with hockey. But yeah, that was just my first exposure to it. And now working the draft, the past couple of years, the World Junior Championship, going to Oakville 2 years ago before the pandemic hit to cover the World Juniors for the website, talking to Alexis Lafreniere, Quentin Byfield, who went 1 and 2, getting to know Jamie Drysdale a little bit more. That to me was kind of like a passion, and that just kept growing and growing even more. So I'm really happy to be bringing the prospects coverage, just continuing the success that we've had in the past few years with Josh and Matt last year as well. So I'm hoping that we could just take another step forward and Hockey Writers become, a prospect mecca of the hockey world right now.
And shout out to Matt ZATOR. That is ZATOR. He's been the guy leading the prospects for a long time for the Hockey Writers, and now has moved to a different role, and he's actually helping out with the show right now. So we thank him very much for that. And I like how, Peter, you're saying about now these guys are in the NHL. When I was covering junior hockey, my first World Juniors camp that I covered was with Sidney Crosby. And there were some other players on that team, but I'm on the flip side. I'm watching a lot of these players now retire. makes me feel a little bit old here. But now let's go back to where we came in with this, that there's a prospect in the Leaf system that was undrafted, but you knew as soon as I told you about this guy that somebody had commented on, you knew about this guy, and you wrote an article about him right after that. So tell us a little bit about this prospect that could be an answer to the Morgan Rielly situation, maybe.
Well, I just going to throw this out there, 2 different positions. So it's not really an answer to the Morgan Rielly situation, because the player in question is Pavel Gogolev. And he was a prospect that went undrafted 3 times out of the OHL, had a 96-point season in his 3rd draft year, didn't get drafted at all. During the lockout, he went and played overseas in the Hockey Allsvenskan League. But before that, he even signed an amateur tryout or a contract with the Toronto Marlies. And, he comes over here, puts up 12 points in 13 games, really strong numbers. And as a result, he got signed to an entry-level contract. So I'm not saying that, we should be looking too much into this, but he does have a lot of tools that can translate to the NHL. He's already got an NHL-like shot, offensive instincts. He knows how to set it up for a really good one-timer. The question was his speed and the fact that he could play an all-around game. We saw little bits of, improvement in that regard. I posted a clip in the article of him basically shooting up the ice, coming off on a bad angle, backhander, and he just snipes the top corner. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say that Pavel Gogolev is going to be a top 6 forward, but I do think he could be a really complimentary undrafted piece to a team that's looking for success, just like Tampa Bay had, where, they went out even though they didn't sign him right away, but Tampa Bay signing Martin St-Louis after his stint with Calgary, Tyler Johnson and Yanni Gourde, who went on to Seattle. So I'm thinking that with his offensive instincts, the fact that he's in a good developmental system right now, if he can improve on the certain aspects of his game, tears it up in the AHL this year like he did, just under a point per game with the Marlies this past season, I think the Maple Leafs have a really good undrafted player that can be inserted into the lineup and be a really, secondary scorer, 3rd-line winger, one-timer power play option that could really do some damage for them.
That was Brian Hodgson that mentioned this prospect in the comments, and we read all the comments on ours. And so thanks for that, Brian. And it was great to read Peter's story. And now we know another guy to keep an eye on when training camp does open. Now, Alex, I know that you write a lot of prospects and watch a lot of those as well. Give us your take on the prospects that are coming up. You were one of the first ones to say that the play of Rasmus Sandin could be the replacement for Rielly that is needed. What other solutions do you see in the farm system that could help out with the Rielly situation?
Well, one prospect I'd kind of like to highlight that truthfully, he's a bit of a wild card because the Leafs traded for him and I don't think anybody saw it coming, but they acquired Brennan from the Minnesota Wild. And what Menell has going for him, I can't remember if he's left-handed or right-handed. So that's someone wants to fact check that and clear it up for me. That'd be great. But I do know that he has succeeded offensively both in the AHL, and he actually spent last year or I can't remember if it was last year, if it was the year before, but he spent some time in the KHL as well, and he was almost a point per game player there as well. So Menell's one of those guys that I think I think the Leafs are more than likely going to start him in the AHL. Especially with the amount of guys that they've got competing for jobs in training camp, I think he'll start in the AHL. But I know that the Leafs are definitely a big fan of the fact that he is a puck moving defenseman and he's got great offensive instincts. And if we do ever see a team in the coming years without Morgan Rielly, like I did highlight Rasmus Sandin as being a guy who could step up and kind of replace and fill that role. But I don't know if Sandin's going to do the entire job. I think Brennan Menell I think there's a reason that the Leafs traded for him, and they gave him, I think they gave up future considerations for him. So that is, that just goes to show that there was an opportunity there that the Leafs wanted to capitalize on. And I think if he starts in the AHL this year and succeeds, proves that he can carry his totals over from the Iowa Wild over to the Toronto Marlies. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him get a look this year, especially if one of the Leafs puck moving defensemen goes down like Rielly or Sandin.
Right-handed shot.
Right-handed shot. Yeah,
right-handed. There you
Somebody's
go. Okay.
Go
So maybe not on Rielly's side, but if a guy like say Justin Hall were to go down, then you can see that.
Mm-hmm. So then calling up the stats too with Dynamo Minsk KHL, 47 games played and had 38 points and also 60 penalty minutes. So I didn't really think that because he's 5'11" and 180 pounds, but has some penalties. All right. Hopefully those are on the good kind of penalties. We don't need any of that. And if I'm not mistaken, old Prof, I think as soon as that trade happened, you kind of saw that as a guy that can help out on the power play.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of him actually before. And then when I saw the trade happen, I did my research and I really liked the kid. I like Alex, I thought this guy could be, it struck me, I worked backwards and said, I think I know what the Maple Leafs are doing. I think they're just taking the chance just in case they can't re-sign Rielly. They'll play him. And the other thing that wasn't mentioned is that he led every player in the KHL in minutes last year. So he was the leading minute getter. So he eats up minutes. And the thing that's different about him and Lehtinen, who they really they brought him over for 2021, and he was the best defenseman in the KHL, but he had never played on the small surface. Menell's different. He's played on the small surface. So I'm thinking that he'll have an easier time translating his game to the North American game. So I'm really high on the young fellow as well. And I have no idea why Guerin let him go in Minnesota, but there must have been something, but I just can't figure it out. Guerin just said, you know what, it's time for him to move and we won't stand in his way. But they could have had him. They didn't keep him. So there's stuff to the story I don't know. And at the same time, like Alex, I really picked up on him. And when I did my homework, he seemed like a keeper and he seemed to fit what the Maple Leafs might need in the future.
The article on Rielly kind of came on the heels of when Darnell Nurse got his massive contract. And that I think Rielly is in that same skill level. Like the Nurse is a stronger, bigger type dude, but Rielly's at that same type of elite level. If there was any question though to how much defensemen are worth right now, when Neil Pionk went to arbitration this week and got nearly $6 million a year, guess what? Morgan Rielly at $5 million a year, he's definitely worth $6 million. I don't know where they come up with that in the books, and he's worth way more than that. So again, back to the article that went out this week and what we talked about last week, there's just no way that they're keeping Riley. And it comes down to if Dubas is going to let this roll for this season and let him walk for nothing again, like JVR and so many other guys before that. But we'll move on from Riley. We like him on the show, and he's going to get paid. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. So next up, I'm going to just add this before we get into social media. The thing that came out on social media this week was the first trailer for the Amazon Prime show, All or Nothing with the Maple Leafs. And I don't know, guys. I watched it, and they talk about, like, there's this buildup at the beginning, blah, 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 but they lost. But you have to see what happened behind the scenes. I'm like, that's all this show is going to be about. The only thing that surprised me was when Dubas said something that actually needed to be beeped. I think this guy is scot-free. There's no way he actually swears and curses. Are you kidding? He loses his temper. I couldn't imagine Dubas being that. But I'm obviously going to watch it because that's what we're at the Hockey Writers to do, and to get some insight and everything else. But man, I don't know if Leaf fans are going to be able to really accept this. It's not only the spoiler of all time. We all knew what happened, but to relive that pain and that it was an exciting season, all for naught. I don't know if I can watch that series. What do you guys think? Are you looking forward to this, or is this going to be painful?
It's going to be painful, and the one line that Kyle Dubas mentioned in the thing, I'm at my limit. I'm at the very end. During the season, I'm assuming that this was during the season and everything was unfolding, or maybe during the off season. I don't know. We'll probably get some more context of that quote later on, but that line just said it all. I mean, as a team, as a fan base, I think everyone is at their limit right now with this team. And now you just heard it straight from the general manager's mouth. But I'm just, before we get into social media roundup, since we're already talking about it, I might as well just mention my tweet right now. David Alter from the Hockey News wrote, the NHL announces that Amazon Premier Series All or Nothing featuring the Toronto Maple Leafs will debut on August 1st. Will Arnett will narrate. There will be 5 episodes. And he posted a GIF of Will Arnett with the caption, "I've made a huge mistake." So that just to me says that, like, I don't know what Will himself was getting into with this, but yeah, imagine how painful it was for him to read and narrate this whole entire thing.
Yeah, if you want to know how much Will Arnett loves this team, go to the podcast where he had on Brendan Shanahan, and Will Arnett bleeds blue. And when Brendan Shanahan, his buddy, got hired as president there, when he called Will Arnett to say, "I got the job," Will said, "We did it." Like, that's how much he is Maple Leafs, you know? So yeah, you're right. That would have been tough for him to read. Alex, are you looking forward to this Amazon Prime show?
No, I'm not at all. I just, I'm going to watch it when it comes out because I have no self-control and I'm in a toxic relationship with this team. But no, I am not interested in reliving everything that happened at the end of the year. And it's just, in a way, I don't think it could have gone better for the crew directing this, because if you're going to make a documentary on the Toronto Maple Leafs, it would have to go one of two ways. Either they finally win their Stanley Cup and they break the curse and it's captured all on video with all the behind the scenes reaction and everything, or they stay completely on brand and fizzle out in the first round. I don't think there was going to be any in between there. And it looks like they ended up staying on brand. And I've seen some clips already. You saw the Rasmus Sandin riding around in a race car. You see Justin Hall, hitting golf balls in his backyard. He's holding a fishing rod and stuff. There are, without a doubt, some scenes that I'm going to want to watch. And there is going to be some stuff that I will like to kind of like view for my own pleasure and everything. But I don't have interest in reliving that. I can't. It just hurt. Like, it's like it'd be like watching your favorite movie and knowing that your favorite character gets killed off in the end, yet you're still watching it. That's just that's what it's like for me. So yes, I'm going to watch it when it comes out, but right now I can't bring myself to get excited about it.
Well, Prof, last word on this one.
I'm excited about it. And honestly, I felt all week that I've sort of been out of touch with the readers of the Maple Leafs blogs that we write, because I don't have a toxic relationship with the team like Alex, but I do understand it. And the work, I was interested to go back in Dubas's comment, and it's something like, my patience is running thin. And I saw that happening with the Hyman signing. I mean, he would not capitulate to Holland, and so that they could get another 8th year on that contract. It was the first time I saw him act out in anger. And I have a feeling, I'm looking forward to seeing how they work on the inside, because I think he's angry. I think he's angry in ways we have never seen before, because he comes across nerdy and geeky and nice. I mean, the way he handled Mikhailovich, or in the when he cut his wrist in the hospital, that's the Dubas we know. But I think there's something really driven about him underneath that we're going to find out a little bit more about, and I'm anxious to see it. I'm anxious to see it. So as I say, I'm old, I guess, and it makes me not live or die with whether the team loses, and it allows me to enjoy the hockey for what it is. But at the same time, I do feel out of touch a little bit with people who are it's like all of Blue and White Nation is hurting and disappointed so badly now that it's hard to it's hard for me to fathom. But at the same time, I understand the logic of it.
I recommend to you guys, there's a new show on Netflix, and now the title just left me, but it's about the Pistons Pacers brawl at the Palace in 2007, I think. I'll find it before we go off, but I watched it last night, and it's when the fans fight the Pacers and the place is turning into a full-on riot. It's insane, and it was a phenomenal documentary that they did on it. And you've got all the players that were involved. You've got fans that got punched in the face. You've got police officers. It's great. I highly recommend watching this, and I'll get the title. But there's a line in it that resonated with me for the Maple Leafs, and it's from one of the Pistons bigwigs that kind of is in charge of season tickets and things. And he says, fans live and die by this team, and there can be a dark place with that. And I think we have lived that firsthand with the Toronto Maple Leafs this offseason. There's a lot of hurt going on. This is a loyal fan base, and there is a lot of hurt right now. So maybe it's good to be out of touch with that, Jim, because when you tap into it, there's still a lot of hurt there for sure. Anything else on the social media roundup, Peter?
That David Alter one really got me with the gif of Will Arnett. That was really something. But if I'm going non-hockey related, the Trey Turner slide, I don't know if anybody saw that. If you get a chance, watch it. He slides into home, and then he just gets up like nothing even happened. That was probably one of the most boss slides into home plate I've ever seen.
I have not seen
Alex
that.
knows what I'm talking about.
I know. Yeah. That was I probably watched that 25 to 30 times on repeat before I finally clicked away. Yeah.
And Alex, how about you? Oh, one more. It's Malice at the Palace documentary on Netflix. Malice at the Palace. It's an hour long, doesn't take much of your life, but it's a great sports journalism piece that you've got to watch. All right, Alex, wrap it up for social media for us, my friend.
Yep. Okay, so this tweet came from Tic Tac Tomar on Twitter, who's a very prominent figure on Leafs Twitter. And if you're on Leafs Twitter, you'll probably know who he is. And he had a pretty funny take on the whole Joe Thornton signing the other day. He goes, Connor McDavid is ecstatic that Joe Thornton signed in Florida because now his number 97 is vacant.
I like that. It's going to happen, boys.
That's all I have to say. Yep.
It's going to happen. It's got to happen. It's got to happen.
Maybe he can bring back Zach Hyman if it does happen with him.
Yes, wouldn't that be nice? All right, so now we're playing NHL 21 GM mode right now. But my favorite one this week was on Instagram, and it said teams that made the Stanley Cup final then dipped. 2016, the Sharks missed playoffs last 2 seasons. 2017, Predators, 1 series win in last 4 years. 2018, Capitals, 3 straight first round exits. 2019, Blues, 2 straight first round exits. 2020, Stars, missed playoffs in 2021. Montreal, 2021. Let's not kid ourselves. If they make the playoffs, I'd be surprised. So I think this one's gonna hold. It's gonna be good for time for sure. All right, so that's the show for today. Thanks so much for joining us. You know that when we think it's a quiet week, then the superstar gets wrist surgery and upends the whole thing, and we got lots to talk about. So you never know what's going to happen in Leafland. We're 6 weeks out to training camp. There's still so many things in the air. There's going to be an enraged Kyle Dubas show up, and my patience is wearing thin. And I can't believe the old prof called him nerdy and geeky, but a nice guy. I'm sure Kyle really enjoyed that. Anyway, that's the kind of show it's been. That's the kind of week it's been for Leaf Nation. Thanks so much for tuning in, and make sure that you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We enjoy bringing the stories to you, and we always like to hear your feedback. So that's it for the Maple Leafs Lounge this week, and we'll see you next week.